this next year. And so I'll be calling the woman out in her. But I'm going to speak words, and the message I have isn't for you, or it might be. The message I wrote for Noah, because it's his day. It's his day. He's my son, and I want to take a minute, and I want to tell you the things that I've been trying to tell you your whole life, and the things that you need to hear in order for you to understand what it is to be a man. And every single one of my kids have gotten a different message. Matthew got a message. Caleb got a message. His message was different because they have different needs, and they have different things that they need to work on inside of them. But it's not just, hey, I'm going to beat up on Noah, but these are your mistakes for the world to see. This is me just trying to show Noah what it is to be a man. And maybe it's what it is that you need to do to be a man. Maybe you're already here and you're like, hey, you know what, I'm an adult. But maybe something in this charge message for Noah speaks to you. Let it. Because this is, I'm just going to read you scripture. I'm going to tell you what it means, and when I'm done, I'm done. So I didn't expect anybody to bring their Bibles, but I'm reading out of Philippians chapter 2. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is Philippians chapter 2, verses, it's two verses, verses 12 and 13. I'm going to start in verse 12, and then I'm going to read down to verse 16. Verse 12 says, "Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in mine absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is Elohim, which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. Do all things without murmuring and disputing, that ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of Elohim without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world, holding forth the word of life, that I may rejoice in the day of Messiah, that I have not run in vain, neither labored in vain." The message that I have today is about integrity. Integrity is a very, very, very important part of everybody's life. And a lot of people just don't have it. A lot of people don't have integrity. What's integrity? Well, integrity is the way that you act when, in Noah's case, the way that you act when I'm not around. If you behave the way that you should, regardless of who's around you, then you have integrity. We all have reputations. Reputations is what we develop by the way we act in front of other people. Integrity is the way we act when nobody else is around, or when we're around other people. That's what determines whether you have integrity. You are in public, or who you are in public should be who you should be all of the time. This is something that I've taught my kids. I said, I don't care what the other kids are doing. I expect you to do what I've told you to do. I expect you to sit still and be quiet. I expect you to stand there. I expect you to obey. I had a conversation with Noah just last year about his behavior in math class. Remember that story?
Yes, sir.
And my advice to you was to behave in math class the way that he would behave to me. That he would place himself under the authority of his teacher instead of as his peer. Did that solve your problems?
Yeah.
It did. And the reason it solved your problems, Noah, is because I was teaching you integrity. Showing off in front of other people.
He doesn't do that.
Showing off is a symptom of a lack of integrity. The way that you talk, if when you are around me or when you're at church, you talk one way, but when you're around your friends or when you're in school, you talk another, shows a lack of integrity. Having pride, lifting yourself up, placing yourself above other people when you know who you really are, shows a lack of integrity. If you want to be a man or a woman, then you have to stop being childish. You cannot continue to be childish and be a man or a woman. You can't be an adult and a child at the same time. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it says that we are to put off childish things. When I was a child, I spake as a child, right? But I'm no longer a child. And today, Noah, you can no longer be a child. You have to be a man. What's separates a man with integrity from a child is the fact that regardless of where you are, you always have the same rules. The same things are always right, and they're always wrong. If while you're around me it's wrong to do something, then you will determine that it's wrong to do it everywhere else. If when you're at church, it's wrong to do something, then you're going to determine that that's wrong to do everywhere else. That the same rules that govern your life at home, govern your life at school, govern your life on the basketball court, govern your life at work, they govern your life even when you're driving in your car. That there's not a different set of rules, there's not a different set of standards. Integrity is saying, you know what? I am going to do this, and it doesn't matter what everybody else does. You have a split home. Sometimes you're at your mom's home, sometimes you're at mine. Integrity says, I'm going to be Noah, whether I'm at my mom's home or whether I'm at my dad's home. I'm going to be me. I'm going to do what I know is right in either place. Now, am I saying that you don't demonstrate integrity, Noah? No, you do. There has been bright, shining lights of integrity in your life. And I'm proud of you for it. Being a man is not having lights of integrity, but to be the light of integrity. You have two different lives. You have a school life and you have a home life. Having integrity means you're the same person at school as you are at home. You have a work life and a home life. Having integrity means you're the same kind of person at work as you are at home. Integrity demonstrates obedience to one set of rules. I've tried to teach you my set of rules. I've also tried to teach you the Father's set of rules. You're a very smart young man. You know that sometimes my rules aren't the same as the Father's. Integrity means that you try and make your rules like the Father's. That it's no longer my rules, or this teacher's rules, or that teacher's rules, or how your friends act, or how anybody acts. It's no longer what's legal or illegal. It's this is me and this is who I am and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to set myself up as close to my Father as I can. And when I say Father, I do not mean me. You should act and talk the same in the locker room as you do at church. Being righteous in an evil world is not easy. That word righteous, we've talked about it before. That word righteous means choosing what is right. Not by anybody else's standard, but by the Father's. And being righteous in a world that is not righteous. Being fair in a world that is unfair. Being godly in a world that is ungodly is not easy. But it demonstrates integrity. We have to look at Paul. And while he was in prison, he was the same righteous apostle as when he was preaching in Galatia. We have to consider the Messiah, or Christ. He was righteous even while he was being whipped. Even while they were tearing the flesh off his back. He didn't curse them. He didn't get mad. He was righteous. Real men and women don't complain. If we're going to talk about the way you act, we looked at verse 12 and it says, wherefore my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, as in my presence, but now much more in my absence. The way you act when I'm around is the way you act when I'm not around. That's not going to be an easy thing for you to decide to do something. But it's necessary. And if we're going to talk about the way you act, we have to understand that the way you act can't be complaining. It says, do all things without murmuring and disputing. Complaining, real men and women don't complain. They can't. Because we're real. And we have to pay the bill whether we like it or not, don't we? If my roof is leaking, I can sit around and complain about it, and guess what? My house will fall in. Or I can fix it and do something about it. And that's what a real man does. A real man doesn't complain about his situation. A real man doesn't grouse about where he's at. He doesn't complain about his job. He doesn't complain about the people that don't like him. He doesn't complain about how high his taxes are. A real man does something about it. He says that we need to do all things without murmuring. That means complaining or disputing. Did you have it rough in your home life? There's times that you did. You can allow your rough home life to keep you from ever being an adult. Did you know that? That you can blame the sins of your parents on your failure, or you can rise above them. Every time that I yelled at you that I shouldn't have is an opportunity for you to determine to do better. Every time that I lied to you is an opportunity for you to realize how much that hurt and to tell the truth. Or it's an opportunity for you to say, well, my dad taught me to do wrong, and so I'm doing wrong. You cannot live your life based on the things that have happened to you. You cannot live your life looking backward at the mistakes that were made against you. You have to rise above them. Does your boss hate you? I think one of them does, right? One of them does. Don't let him force you out of your job. Don't let him do that. Improve yourself. Most people will become a victim of their bad attitudes. They'll say, hey, you know what? My life has been this way, so I'm going to drink too much. No, they never say it out loud, but that's what they do. They say it with their actions. They say, my life has failed. My parents didn't love me. So I'm going to break the law of the Father. I'm going to do what I want to do. My dad was a drunk. I'm going to be a drunk. My dad was a drunk. I'm going to be a druggie. They're a victim. They're not a victim of their dad. They're a victim of their own bad attitude, because we are individual people and we are responsible for our decisions regardless of what evil was perpetrated against us. We are a victim of what we can't do. So many times in my life, I've said, I can't do that. I can't be that person. And let me tell you something. There's people here that know what kind of person I used to be. And now I stand behind the pulpit. What you can't do is what you tell yourself you can't do. The Father can use you if you will say, hey, you know what? I'm done complaining about the past. I'm going to make a tomorrow. I'm going to make it today. I'm going to start changing things now. I'm not okay with the way that I talk. I'm not okay with the way that I treat my parents. I'm not okay with the way I treat other people. I know it's wrong. I'm going to stop. All you have to do is start moving in that direction. It becomes easier. Some will be greater. Some will be victims, but some will be greater. That movie, Greater, I've been trying to get your team to come see it. You know why? It's not because I like the movie so much. I do like it, but that's not why. It's because that movie is about being greater. It's about taking all of the worst things. The first time he played football, remember that? The first time he played, what did his coach tell him?
I don't know, some like negative stuff.
Yeah, he was like, you will never be able to play football anywhere. You are the worst player I've ever seen. And he could have taken that and he could have complained. He could have victimized himself by the evil that was perpetuated against him. But instead, what did he do? He rose above it. He tried harder. He showed up early. He left late. He put in more effort than anybody else. It's about being greater. Integrity is about being greater, Noah. You're good. You're the best defender of basketball that I've ever seen in high school. Wouldn't you say that he's pretty good, Joaquin?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what it is, but you figured out a way that if you just move your hands more while you're moving them around, that makes it where people just can't even shoot the ball.
He's always done that since he started in 3rd grade.
He's awesome at basketball. Do you know what, Noah? You can be greater. You can be greater at basketball, but you can be greater than basketball too. Basketball may be the next step in your life. You may go to college, play basketball. If you do, you know, I'm going to show up to as many games as I can. But you may not. You may decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to do something else. But you know what? I'm going to show up wherever I can. I'm going to be there for you. But my preaching to you is not to run you down. It's to make you greater. It's to lift you up. Because you know what? You're pretty good, but you're really down here. You've got things about your life that though basketball is doing good, you got things about your life that you're down here, son. You can be greater. You can be better. See, some people become greater, and they do it not by complaining about their problems, but by fixing their problems. They recognize that let me tell you something, in case you didn't know this, 90% of the problems that any one of you are going to have throughout your life, you carry around in your own back pocket.
Yep.
I've seen people that said, oh, I hate my boss. I'm going to quit this job and go get another one. You know what? They get to the new job and they hate their boss there too. You know why? Because it was never their boss. It was their attitude. I've seen people say, man, if I could just get out of this town, I'd stop using drugs. And they go to the next town and they start using drugs. You know why? Because it was never the people in that town. It was their attitude. They're a victim of their own attitude, their own poor choices. And let me tell you something, you can be greater if you'll just empty your pockets and say, you know what, I'm not going to carry this around anymore. I'm not going to do it. Integrity sets a person up to help others. You cannot help anyone by complaining. You'll never help a single person by going to them and telling them everything that's wrong in their life or everything that's wrong in your life. You help other people by getting yourself up and being greater than you are today, so you have something to offer the next person you meet. Integrity, when no one is looking, is value when everyone is looking. In verse 15 it says that ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of Elohim without rebuke in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world. Let me tell you something. If you will determine today that you are going to be a better person than you were yesterday, if you'll determine that tomorrow when you wake up, you're going to fix some of your problems, maybe you just small fixes, but you determine that you're going to be a man of integrity, guess what? The things that you do when no one's looking are going to give you value when everybody's watching you. You'll never know what people think about you unless they think bad things. You'll never know the good things that you do. But I'm going to tell you, one day somebody's going to just say, that Noah, he's got integrity. I can ask him to do something, and he does it. I can ask him to tell me if he did something wrong, and he'll every time tell me, yeah, that was me. I totally messed up. I'm sorry. What can I do to make it better? You'll fix things, and people will see that. Integrity, when no one is looking, becomes a value when everyone is looking. We cannot lead if we do not have it. Listen, I'm not raising you, Noah. I'm not raising you. I'm not raising any of my kids to follow after somebody else. I'm raising you to lead. And on that journey to leading, you will have to follow some people. But I want you to set such a good example of what it is to follow somebody that other people will follow you. And one of these days, you're going to stand up and people are going to be following you. I'm not raising you to follow somebody else. I'm raising you to lead. I'm raising you to be better. I'm not raising you to walk around with a blindfold on and earmuffs on and act like nothing's going on around you, just following the next guy down the road. I'm raising you to think for yourself. It's funny, somebody accused me of brainwashing Nadine. And I said, brainwashing? Good night. I've never seen anybody that brainwashes people to think for themselves. I don't brainwash anybody. I'm not brainwashing you. I'm telling you to make your own decisions. To judge things based on a standard of right and wrong. Certainly it is the Bible. But to judge things and make good choices. And you are not going to be able to lead anybody to Him unless you have integrity. Unless the things that come out of your mouth aren't lies. Unless the things that come out of your mouth aren't curse words. Unless the way that you act is a pride. I'm raising you to lead people not just as a leader, but to lead people to Him. And that takes integrity. If we are not defined by our convictions, if we do not allow our convictions to dictate what's right and what's wrong, if we don't allow the things that lay on our hearts and say this is right and this is wrong to control your actions, then your convictions will be defined by your companionship. The Bible says that bad company corrupts good behavior. And I'm going to tell you right now, no, if you don't determine, all of you, if you don't determine that you're going to live by your convictions, live by what you know is right, then what's going to end up happening is the people around you are going to tell you what's right and what's wrong. And it's not going to be one person. It's not going to be your dad walking up beside you and putting his arm around you and says, son, I love you. Here's the right way of doing things. It's going to be a bunch of people. There's going to be 20 people. And they're going to come to a consensus. And 9 times out of 10, the consensus of those 20 people are going to be wrong. And if you do not determine what's right and follow that now, then what you're going to end up doing is you're going to fall into what other people define as right and wrong in a consensus. Our convictions will be defined by the people we hang around if we do not define them ourselves. We have an obligation to do good, regardless of how you define good. Some of you may say, hey, you don't define good the same way I do. That's fine. Do good the way you define it. But you have an obligation to do good. You have an obligation to be a light in a dark world. Isn't this what it says? It says, ye shine as lights in the world. It calls this world a crooked and perverse nation. You are not called to be crooked and perverse. You're called to do good, to be light, to make a difference. This world is a dark place. If you don't believe this world's a dark place, then I would encourage you to look into it, because sex trafficking. We have a friend in Oklahoma whose daughter nearly got kidnapped by sex traffickers, and she was a wealthy woman. Sex trafficking. It's real. It's in the United States. It's happening. That's dark. Murder is dark. If you can fill up 2/3 of the nation with all the babies that have been killed in abortion since the beginning of, since they started allowing it. That's a dark place. Addiction. And you know, a lot of people say, well, addiction's not as bad as murder and sex trafficking. I'm going to tell you addiction is worse. Because addiction will leave you alive after it takes everything you have. But just barely. Addiction will destroy your life. This is a dark place. You each have an obligation to shed light on your part of this world. You know, this world's a dark place, but my home isn't. I won't let it be dark. You have authority over something. Maybe you have authority over your phone. How many teenagers in here have their own phone? What you watch on your phone, you have authority over that. Don't let it be a dark place. What you say on your phone, you have authority over that. Shed light. Your integrity is not just your testimony, it's my testimony. In verse 16 it says, holding forth the word of life, that I may rejoice in the day of Messiah, that I have not run in vain, neither labored in vain. Listen, I have worked hard. I have stayed up late nights. I have spent a good amount of money. I've helped you. I've read to you. I helped you with math. And now you're a math genius, right?
Yeah, pretty good at math.
Yeah, but you weren't. I've helped you. Your mom sitting right next to you, she's helped you. Your mom sitting right next to her, she's helped you. Your brothers, they've helped you. And I have to tell you that when I give a speech to Hannah, I will include the conversation you had with her about being on the phone and lying about it. Because you helped her, didn't you?
Yeah.
You've invested. And a lot of people here, probably all of them, at some time or another have invested in who you are. So what we want to see, Noah, what we want to see is that we haven't run in vain. That the effort, the money, the time, the prayer, the love, the encouragement, the hugs, that they weren't given to you because you needed them and that was it. But that we've invested something and there's a return. He says, holding forth the word of life, that I may rejoice in the day of Messiah, that I have not run in vain, neither labored in vain. I don't want my efforts to be vain or empty, like a balloon or a bubble. If you don't know what vain means, it basically means like a balloon. I could have a ball over here and it be a big metal weight. And you try to pick it up and be like, I won't move. But I can do the same thing. You've seen the cartoons where they put the balloons on the end of it, and he goes to lift it up and flies into the air. That's vanity. There ain't no weight to it. There's nothing to it. It looks like it's something, but it's not. Your integrity affects how people think about you. If I was trying to convince my friends that the way that I follow is the way that we should all follow, then I better live by that way. It affects your testimony, son. If you have no integrity, then you have no testimony. It don't matter how much you kneel and pray at the game. If you're going to cuss during the game, then you have no testimony, son. But it affects my testimony too. Your friends, they see me and they think, well, he's the pastor and he's the dad of Noah. When they see you, what does that make them think about me? You need to watch your integrity. But it doesn't just affect you and me. If that was it, then I think that even I could live with that. Sure, yeah, I'm hurting me. Sometimes I get mad at my dad. I'm going to go cuss out my coach. But it also affects the testimony of the one that you serve. You know, there is no leading anybody. There's no winning souls if you're doing it with a foul mouth. There's no winning souls if you're doing it while you're running down somebody's mom. There's no winning souls if you're doing it with your fists. You cannot allow your integrity to be compromised, not just because of you and not just because of me, but because your faith depends on it. Who you are at my house should be who you are when you're at Jonah's house, or who you are when you're at school, or who you are when you're at work. You need to set rules for yourself because you're outgrowing mine. And that is what I need from you, son. In order for you to take that next step, to be a man, I need you to consider who you are and who you want to be. Because who you are today, you're the seed that's being planted, that's going to grow into the tree of the man you become. And you may say, well, you know, nobody's around. Well, it's not, I mean, everybody talks like this at school. One of these days, and you don't have to ask me, you can ask other people at that table. One of these days, you're going to want to quit talking like that, and it's going to be very hard. One of these days, you're going to want to quit acting that way, and it's going to be very hard. Have integrity. Think about integrity. That's it. So, you guys can go play ball.
Was that the introduction?